We're live. We're live. Welcome, everybody. I'm Ali Alexandra. I'm here with my co-host, Jose Ricana. Today, we're going to talk about Lori Lightfoot. Well, everybody knows how I feel about Lori Lightfoot. You know how I feel about Lori Lightfoot.
How do you feel about Lori Lightfoot?
Come on now. For the record, last time I tried to be fair, like a week ago, I feel like I was pretty easy on her. I'm not happy with her. I don't know what we should get into first. Let's actually talk about, I think, the teachers union in schools and reopening, because I want to hear what's going on with that pretty much. So let's dive
right unfortunately, because Congress isn't giving, the states any guidance, the states can't give the counties or the municipalities any guidance. So, I was on the CTU union call this week, and, what organizing we can do. We know who we work for is generally the attitude that people are adopting. If they can push us into an environment that, even if it's unsafe to our health and they can get away with it, they will. So unfortunately, right now, there is a blockage on a pending litigation on a right to safety. The CTU statement on that is included in the show notes. Essentially, can the government force workers into an environment that they know is hazardous?
Yeah.
To this degree. Generally, the law suggests that you can't. So, there's a case to be made. But, there's this corporate liability that, they want to pass soon, and, how that's going to look. And so everything's in flux, I guess, more or less. We know that some parents do want, some of those voices have been pronounced in the media.
Mm-hmm.
I just, by my own experience, I've gotten the opposite. But it's all going to come down to how much support we can get from individual clusters of neighborhood schools to say that we don't really want to put anyone at risk at this time.
Right.
To change the policy. And Lori, my thing with Lori is that she says she listens to the science.
Yeah.
The science says is that this is a deadly, disease that is going to maybe be with us for for our lifetime. We need to develop a vaccine for it for the long term.
Yeah.
That's what the science is saying.
Right.
So why is she saying that she's following the science, but she's pushing people to go to work, which seems mostly political, when it doesn't seem like her priority as a city manager is prioritizing the health and safety of the city workers. I guess I should that's how people are feeling right now.
Well, and so something about this topic, I've been kind of following it. Obviously, you do know far more, like a lot more about this, of course, as far as the teachers and how that's going with the teachers union. But Lori Lightfoot, again, she ran kind of on this notion of like being for the people. And obviously she didn't know about COVID at the time of running, but it seems like I just didn't realize there was such a divide between Lori Lightfoot and the teachers. Like, has it always been like that? Because I thought that she was supposed to be on their side. Like, it's weird because, yeah, like you said, she's following the science. But then, like, for other things that are reopening, she's like, no way. So I just don't really understand the science here. I just don't understand her play. And, like, if it's political, like, basically, I just want to know a little more about the relationship between Lori Lightfoot and the teachers union. People would be interested too. Well, for like whatever you can say. I don't know if you can say
I wouldn't say it's awesome. Yeah, generally the relationship between the mayor and the unions isn't awesome. I think Daley worked at finagling like some goodwill, some social goodwill, but that's just because he was a product of Madigan and Burke taking over the Democratic Party of the city and the state. And that's how they did business. Ronnie Manuel came in and he just made it known, like, I really would rather kill this union. And I feel like the long-term plan for a lot of the billionaires that live, downtown, has been to kill the union, to kill public schools. They did it. They did it in Detroit. They did it in Baltimore. Chicago's next on the docket, and then there goes New York and LA after that. And obviously right now with remote learning is an optimal time for them to strike, to try to attack, the cohesion that a neighborhood school could bring to a community. They want cities to look more like, East Asian, like mega cities, like Tokyo, like even, like a lot of like the major cities that, are medium-sized cities, like that China just kind of built up knowing that they're going to fill it with people. The rich want to do that. I don't think, the idea once was that was more environmentally sustainable. It's not. Not in practice, especially because they just guzzle a ton of energy. The idea was to concentrate all the, it was, the ideas of 10 years ago didn't evolve with the science. It stayed with the investing line. And one of them was that public schools should die, and there should be more of like a individual private school system, like charter schools, like the Hagwon system that you would see in South Korea. And, and rich would own those schools. And for the teachers unions, the AFT, long term, the profession of teaching should be one that's unionized, whether it's charter school or public school. So saving public school isn't the line for the AFT, but it definitely is the line for the CTU,
right?
So right now, if we're going to say public schools as we understand them and know them at all, and not give them over to a government that is throwing us pittance during a plague, and the rich that are taking bets on how many of us are going to die and what we're going to do with that trauma. We should maybe be supporting the unions and the working class collectivized efforts to maintain that cohesion. That's where I'm at.
No, I mean, I agree. I think it's because like I said, I've been kind of following this and like just reading a lot of like tweets from, I don't know, parents. It seems like they're kind of split on this issue going back to school. Like I get it because obviously everybody, my cat's in the background, whatever. Anyway. Like Lucy, she's cute. But it just seems like there's really no plan, and the mayor's kind of fine with that. Like she knows that the remote learning isn't really working for everybody. I know a lot of kids have fallen through the cracks, but they didn't really provide any supplies, materials for any of the teachers on that end. And then in the same sense, they're like, okay, come back. It's not safe. Like we'll tell you it's not safe for every other industry in the city, like restaurants are, decimated. Now I realize there's different factors that go into it, but like essentially it's a group setting again. You've got kids coming, then they're going back home to their parents. Sometimes they live with, it's multiple generations in a home. It's just like, it just seems very irresponsible. And it puts the teachers themselves in a really bad spot too, because then they look like, oh, they don't want to work, to the critics. They don't want to work. They don't want to go back to school. That's not it. They just want to be safe and have a plan. I've got a friend, he teaches out in the suburbs and they're trying to figure out how they're not doing it like Chicago. They have got some in school, some out of school, but he works with special needs kids. And pretty much he's just telling me, like, it was last week we talked, he was just saying the hardest part is for all the teachers feeling like they're not there for the students when they're going through a really hard time. So I just think Lori Lightfoot's being really callous about the whole matter. That's how she really is with everything pretty much, but just very callous. And, something about her, I highly doubt she'll ever watch this channel. If she does, I'm never getting anywhere close to her. But I would ask her, like, why is she's so dismissive of anybody that questions her mentality, anybody around her, their approach, whether it's for schools, whether it's for police. So I'm just,
So
She is a cop, and she loves to pretend that she's not, but she is
right.
so all the way through and
Like,
through.
you can't, that thing that she does that's annoying. That's cops. So like you can't untrain that.
Yeah, no, you can't. It's with them for life, actually. Well, speaking of cops, well, did you have anything more to say about the teachers union? Otherwise,
Okay, don't shoot me. Sorry.
no, you're fine. It's okay.
I live around cops, and I think they're getting sick of me. That's why.
Yeah. She is Lori Lightfoot is a cop, and she will always be a cop. And I'm not happy with her right now, obviously, about how she's handled Anjanette Young's the whole
Right. You did a lot of digging into this. And I've been trying to stay away from electronic devices and social media. Updates on that later, but please.
Well, I took a couple days off too. Actually, I had to, because you have to. Sometimes it's like there's just so much coming in all the time. But true to form for Chicago, it's always in the middle of the night. There's a bit of a media dump. And over the weekend, we found out that the city corporate attorney he's gone now. He's resigned. That's so typical in Chicago. So he was part of obviously the law department that went after not only Anjanette Young's attorney for wanting to get that video out there, but obviously CBS. And then the judge ended up allowing that to go forward anyway, luckily, so everybody could see that video. So Lori Lightfoot then, I mean, I can just picture her like walking in and being like, you got to go. But yeah, he's gone now. And there's notes about this, or there's articles about this in the show notes. But so that happened. And then 2 of her staffers have already left. And Lori Lightfoot pretty much just went on a PR campaign. So she went, let's see. She went on CBS, and I've attached that in the show notes. And she did like a 20-minute interview. I believe she went on MSNBC. She went on ABC. And then she had another press conference on Monday, pretty much just saying that the police are going to fix all these issues. They've already got remedies in play. And she just kept reminding everybody that, well, this didn't happen under my watch, and there's got to be accountability, that, we've got to respect humanity and dignity. It's the same buzzwords every time.
Right.
And
her job before. So like
we all have. We all have.
That wasn't set up. So
And so yeah, she the city council met yesterday, and was a special committee here. I don't know if you caught any of that. It was 8 hours long, so I did not watch the whole thing, I will admit. I would say, again, aldermen, they were pretty much all infuriated that Lori Lightfoot wasn't even there. She couldn't even take the time to go to the committee hearing yesterday, where they had people from COPA, which is the accountability board that supposedly handles these things. And then they also had, obviously, the police superintendent there. They had people from the state's attorney's office, and they had people from the inspector general's office. So everybody was giving their input, but I've never heard so much just like not bureaucratic nonsense. I mean, one of the aldermen, actually, I think it was Jeanette Taylor from Inglewood, she got on there and basically just said, you guys are a bunch of professional time wasters. Because I think for like 30 minutes, they were just debating whether or not they could introduce another ask, which was basically to ban no-knock warrants. And the city was saying, no, you can't do that because it wasn't a no-knock warrant. Just going back and forth. And I felt like after 8 hours, more could have been accomplished. But it's all politics. And I don't think it's just, go ahead.
No, so, like, to the point, like, where this is a multifaceted movement, you need someone, number one, like yourself, thank you for slugging through any amount of those 8 hours as someone that's just observing the molasses, and at least, letting us know that Jeanette is there being real and being like, yo, you guys are just killing your time to say that this is the best you can do, and it's not. Right. Also, Jeanette isn't there knowing that she's going to be there with professional time wasters, on her first go around. This is what, her second year and a half into office. So like however many, we can get into that later, but however many people we get into office, they need to be able to go through those 8 hours, do however much of this molasses and get what they can get out of something. It's, the defund the police is, it looks like that, and it's really annoying. And that's already a compromise. Abolish the police is a lot easier. Like, cut the budget, and start from scratch. The cops go on, when New York, when they went on a strike, they went down a little bit. I don't think that's going to exactly happen during this pandemic with the amount of unemployment and desperation there is out there. But that's also part of the plan. Cops are having their budgets funded.
Right.
One of my things is that, this major bill that is coming up in Congress is really going to shape the way that blue states, blue cities, whatever, major cities get bailed out, get funding. And the funding they're prioritizing, of course, is going to be cops, not helping people. They're counting on those people to get evicted, to get desperate, to turn on each other, to turn vicious, to turn to crime. And then all that money they invested in cops pays off.
Just like
that's not, and so.
It's ridiculous. And I really, again, like, I wasn't at first, like, back in May, everyone's like, defund the police. And I didn't know a ton about the movement. I'm like, well, I was one of those people. I'll admit it. Guilty. I was like, that's not great messaging. I've completely changed my mind on that because I have, which obviously you can tell, and I don't love admitting that, but I was like, well, defund doesn't mean you literally have nobody to help with public safety, but like, we don't really need like these tactical units going in, just barging down the doors, like obviously how they did. Everybody's seen this video now. But, just away from the police, Lori Lightfoot, like, again, she's a cop. She used to work. She was the head of COPA, was she not? Am I wrong on that? She was.
Yeah.
Okay, which they're also pretty useless, which, I mean, just like it took them.
They are the reform. Sorry.
That's the reform. That's the reform. And what have they done? Like, they just were like literally sitting on it. Like, then you ask them, why did it take so long? Nobody knows. Nobody knows what's going on. And what I found hilarious in a not funny way, of course, are the changes that are coming from this. And it's posted also on the show notes from Black Club Chicago. So the changes, we have officers now need an approval from a deputy chief or above for a search warrant. Okay. Then the department must and will clarify which teams conduct search warrants. Great. Lieutenants or higher ranking supervisors will have to be on the scene when the search warrant is executed. Department policy should require third-party corroboration for search warrants without exception. And internal methods will be created to review search warrants, including a database of outcomes of search warrants. And lastly, enhanced training. So those are great. That's awesome. I'm sure that
money for new facilities, money for retirees to come and train the kids, money for them to hang out with a bunch of military jocks to show them stuff that they shouldn't be doing to inner city kids, and paperwork that they can make disappear after a year if they feel like. So awesome. That's
great. I mean, I think that Lori Lightfoot I think this will actually be a real problem for her. I don't think she's going to be able to escape it. I'm not letting up on her. And I think I'm really impressed with a group of the aldermen that are really trying to, at least, whether it's for a political show, which it might be, or because they really care. Either way, I like that they're putting it out there. I don't know all of their motivations, but I'm impressed with the questioning. I'm sure there will be a video of the full thing out later. Not that anybody would want to watch 8 hours, but there were some good moments when, some aldermen were just saying, where is the mayor? Like, press conferences aren't going to cut it. Why are you not here talking to the city? Because I think it was right after our last show, I think it was the next day, Lightfoot admitted that she did know about it. So she first said she didn't know about it. Then she said, Then after looking at emails, her staff let her know that she in fact did know about it. And she was probably too busy with the budget at the time to really pay much attention to it. So that again tells you right there where her priorities are. Then she, on one of the interviews, she said, well, there needs to be accountability. And even the interviewer was pushing back, like, well, it was under your watch. And she was like, well, I wish I would have known. somebody in my staff should have told me. And like, I'm done with that. I'm done with that. That worked for her time after time after time. And she can never just take the blame and just say, I messed up, I'm sorry. So I'm just tired of her. I think Chicago deserves so much better. She ran on this progressive agenda. She's full of it.
Yeah. Well, I think that, no, you're not wrong, but that's also been every Chicago mayor. And I'm not
Very
trying to
true.
blame her just, she's like our first, lesbian black mayor, but, that's a cop. But like, but like Rahm never took blame until they FOIA'd and like
True.
try to actually prosecute the police. And the police are just like, hey, this guy knew all about it. And Rahm's like, I quit. And, he's a pariah from working with Biden now. There's nothing we can do about that. Like Rahm tried to escape all accountability completely. That's the way he ran his administration, and then it caught up to them. That's rare. That didn't happen to Daley. He got Rahm elected and had Rahm cover up all his stuff. Madigan and Burke stayed in power, and they're just like, oh, we still run things,
Yeah.
So I think Lori's following a pattern that's also unsustainable, though. Like, to your point, like Madigan and Burke are on their way out. Whether their legacies are going to be shaping the Democratic Party of the Midwest, for our entire generation. Like, their hands in the in the kitchen is not so much anymore. They're not sous chefing anymore, and Chicago's changing, and the big money that's changing it. Lori, I think, is trapping herself to only being accountable to that.
Yeah.
Easing it, which is Rahm's plan, and it takes something terrible happening in a big city like Chicago that you kind of knew about, like this video that she's kind of getting away with this political scandal. But this is also because that Young herself pushed for this transparency, pushed for these police reforms. We're also in the moment for this to be brought to light. And we also want real reform from Lori. So, she might be able to shuffle out of this a little bit. But eventually, if she's only accountable to the big money, keeping all of her secrets for her, she's, and she's looking to jump up, that's someone that they can easily cut down.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to end up hating her more and more and more. I was going to say liking her less and less and less, because part of me still is hoping that she has some kind of humanity for the thousands of workers and their families that also use these schools and, are waiting on a vaccine that also just went through one of the worst years, that you could possibly be in a public service, industry, not knowing exactly what our government is doing.
Yeah.
She wants to hold on to a shred of the populism that even Trump just remembered. Oh yeah, I ran as a populist. People want money right now.
Yeah.
He didn't think of that in March, but like now it just clicked. If some of that were to click in Lori, that if she had some goodwill with the public, she wouldn't need to have to kowtow to the big money that's behind her for every single little thing, every single way that they want it, because they will get her to that point. Maybe, she'll come around on the schools, but it's not looking that way at all. So
no, it's not. I like your optimism. It's minimal, but I like it.
Something like that.
I think for me, no, I mean, I wasn't, it's Chicago, so I can't expect much. I really personally didn't place a ton of hope in Lightfoot anyway, but somebody like Anjanette Young, who did believe in her, that's why I get angry. I don't like when people put all of their faith into somebody for one reason or another, and so many people did for her, and she's just turning out to be more of the same. So I just get mad about it, because get off the TV with your alligator, crocodile tears, whatever, alligator, crocodile tears. I don't know. I can't stand it. I'm not a Lori Lightfoot fan, so this video obviously won't make me popular with City Hall. But like, she just sits there sometimes, and she just actually points her finger, and that's when I want to be like, I'm done with her. She really points her finger. She just scolds like people like they're a little child, and just I don't know. I really would like that the aldermen, some of them are putting back, so I hope they keep it up.
I mean, you know, and I do too. You know, shout out to those aldermen doing that good work. You know, like to her credit, and I'm, you know, and I'm talking. I don't mean to just be playing contrarian devil's advocate.
No,
but,
I love it. I like that. I
have a local media. Sorry.
No. Do it all. I do that all the time, actually. So it's time for somebody to do it back to me. Go ahead.
The Chicago local media, you know, they're not rushing to save public schools. They didn't save 50 schools from closing. They didn't hold Ron Emanuel accountable. You know, they were out, you know, gaslighting him and inflating his ego, and then not, and then yes, and then they're like, oh wait, you know, that was really bad. You know, we always thought that he was kind of off, and like, you know, and then bear in mind how Trump handles his press conferences, you know, and how other mayors and, you know, Cuomo wouldn't stand there and take that from anybody. He'll go on his brother's show and like knock him around.
Oh yeah.
So like, you know, Lori, I'm not saying that I like how Lori's treating the press, but the Chicago local media isn't necessarily the working class's friend all the time, most of the time, historically, systemically.
Really not.
Right. Which, I mean, you know, we wouldn't be doing independent media if they were. You know, also why it's a town that's big for, you know, upstart independent media, because there's always these gaping holes, you know, because most of the established media's relationships directly with power, directly with the mayor's office. And, you know, to that point, I don't know how she can posture being the tough mayor to the press about how tough it is to run a city, and also be running around in a Halloween costume, warning kids about coronavirus, and then shoving all of them into a disease-ridden school that he has no accountability to, you know, how many lives that would impact.
That's a good point. That's a really good point, because I wanted another reason to not love her because of the costume videos that she's got. So that's a great point. Like, how is she going to sit there and say she cares that much and like put on her little, what was she, a Rona buster for Halloween or something like that? She's been a lot of different things. She's made a lot of PSAs. Those are really interesting. If any of you have seen those, or if not, check them out. They're really embarrassing for the city. But that's a good point. And as far as the Chicago press corps, no, they're not. They're hardly for the working people of the city. I mean, honestly, I was stunned that CBS 2 was doing this. Like, I was actually stunned that they have been working on this wrong raid cases for over a year now. You know, because usually the press is pretty kind to the mayor. Maybe not kind, but they go easy because they know if they ask too many questions that aren't favorable or don't make the mayor look good, they probably won't be allowed back in the room. Your press pass will get taken away. But that's Chicago for you. So, but yeah, I hope that as far as the schools, when are people supposed to go back?
So there's a wave of workers that would go back January 4th, I believe it was. Might have been 3rd. You should know. The first week back from winter break, January 4th. Yeah, there should be a wave of workers, and then they'll incrementally be bringing people in. And also, like, what parents need to understand is that sending the kids to the building is going to look much different than what it used to look like. So there's a lot that CPS is rushing through on, like, workers' guidelines that might be untenable to people's long-term health, but they're getting away with it because there's no federal direction.
Okay.
And it's like, if she were a little kinder, she would hold off, but clearly she's more beholden to big money, and big money doesn't care who lives or who dies. You know, they want society to look the way they want it to look.
Yeah. And that actually, on that point, that makes a little more sense to me as far as the money, because then just to compare to Madigan, I know it's a completely different union, but unions are more influential on a statewide level versus with this, because Lori's more beholden to bigger money, that makes sense. Then why she wouldn't really have any loyalty to the teachers union. So we'll have to see how that goes. I mean, I just worry about obviously the kids too, like the inconsistencies that they've had all year. Like they literally just, I don't know, like the long-term effects this is going to have on kids. And I mean, obviously for the teachers, but mostly for the kids. I just don't know what that would feel like, I guess, from their perspective.
I mean, I honestly, I don't know any public school student that at some point doesn't just feel like the government failed them specifically. Like, wow, I really don't matter in this home, whatever it is that's going on here. It's not for me. Yeah, so like I think the whole country got a taste of that this year, and if there was any kind of federal leadership, and there's not, but if there was, like, they should kind of do a redo on this year. I would say, like, a lot of the kids have done all right. Like they moved their metrics. They have engaged with with a social worker and support to what they can, but it's a struggle for all of their families. Like I don't want to go more into it, but like everyone, this whole year has just been
bummer.
Yeah,
and a bummer. I'm looking on the show notes here, and I see that you did add in the last topic. Do you want to talk about it a little bit? I'm just kind of throwing your mention here, or I don't know.
Yeah. We're gonna go more into it on the weekend.
Yes, we are. I put you on the spot.
It's a bit more of a conspiracy thing. Well, it's not. This is a thanks. This is
we could talk about it later. I kind of want to.
No. I can just at least because I did speak to a Chicago organizer about it who works in Mexicans abroad. Like right now the relationship between, like, I was born in Mexico, but I came to the U.S. when I was 2, and I was naturalized when I was like 13. But like long term, like Stephen Miller and Trump would be like, that guy's not American enough, and he talks a lot of smack, like send him back, and I'd be like, all right, at this point, I'm like, I'm picking Mitt Romney's self-deportation plan. I'm like, all right, that was the reasonable route, so I'll do that. But
say that you're done. Yeah, you're not really American. You're out of here. Get out of here. I'm kidding.
What's going on in Mexico is interesting because it shapes so much of what the U.S.'s response, is nationally and then locally with local Mexican communities. Like Chicago is a third, Black, a third white, and a third Latino. That's the way it's considered in urban planning circles, the third city, and predominantly Mexican. And we, a lot of the show covers that history with Ed Burke and the way he opened up the consulate here, and the Bracero program from the 70s and all this stuff. All that to say that right now, what's interesting with Mexico is that Attorney General Barr released this a Minister of Defense, Cisneros, who was arrested last summer, unbeknownst to the Mexican government. Now, this is kind of where the Washington Post seems like it's running just fake news. It's running a lie. It's running a purposeful narrative where they're saying that Mexican government and López Obrador, and making this weird deal with Trump to get Cisneros back, played the U.S. Really nefariously. Well, one part that they're missing is that Trump's administration arrested Cisneros without even telling the Mexican government or López Obrador. Right. It was, and the fact that López Obrador was able to get Cisneros back is seen as a mistake on the U.S.'s part, a benefit to the Mexican government's part, and very confusing and problematic right now with the transition. How does that play into what Trump's doing, where he doesn't want to relent and all this? And People are saying Lopez Obrador is taking too long to congratulate Biden. He's in on some Russia weird nonsense. This organizer that I spoke to today, he's very partial to the efforts that Obrador is trying to do in creating a new political party in Mexico. I won't say that he has done everything right. I have family in Mexico that's not doing so well with this pandemic. And some of that could be a lot of his public policy where it was not great. But he has raised the minimum wage. He doubled it. And the thing is that most of Mexico, a big portion of Mexico is unemployed because people make a better livelihood just being self-employed than trying to work a job on minimum wage. By doubling the minimum wage, he's increased a ton of people's livelihoods. And one of the number one ways that lower income people in Mexico gain any kind of income is from Americans, from Mexican families in America working and sending money back. Now, if they're working for a higher minimum wage in Mexico, you might see less money from America leaving and going to Mexico. So there's things to discuss out there, but it's mostly seeing like the Washington Post wants to say he's a cartel, led narco terrorist state, strongman, and he's not. He's kind of a bizarre, weird old man, and he's not a hero or doing anything perfect by any means, but Cisneros getting arrested without him being alerted was a step in delegitimizing the Mexican state. And Cisneros has been a career-long bureaucrat of the Mexican state long before Obrador, who's only been there for 2 years. And he was really rising to power during the war on terror, during the Bush years, and was there to usher in the administration of Felipe Calderon, who seems to be a good ally of Biden and antagonist to Obrador's efforts to create a new party in Mexico. So there's a lot going on. But why does this pertain to Chicago and America? Well, Cisneros was living in California when he was arrested, #1 last year. Felipe Calderon also has, been not a stranger to, working in America. And another thing is that Chicago has seen an influx. The primary drivers of migration from Mexico here in Chicago come from Tamaulipas, where, like I do, and Oaxaca and Michoacan. And those are some of those 3 spots are one of the main drivers of cartel violence right now and instability. And what's shared in the link is someone that's been following this story much longer than I have, has done extensive research, long links. I recommend just checking out the main articles and checking out other stuff. And, it just seems like there's been a disconnect between the military agenda of the U.S. in Mexico and the police, the local law enforcement response to the instability that has been happening in Mexico because of military policy that was pretty much set by the war on terror during Bush's administration. So that disconnect has created this weird shadow war between different groups that ultimately all end up working for some kind of cartel or another, and that could cause the Mexican state to lose its legitimacy.
Yeah,
as the head of state, is just trying to hold on to that.
Yeah, and rightfully, that's just first going through this article. When you first introduced it to me to this this person, his research, it's extensive. That was kind of why I brought it up, even though I said we weren't going to talk about it, just because I would love, I really want the story to get out there, because for the most part, nobody knows about it. If you ask people hey, what do you know about Mexican government or cops in Mexico or the cartel, they'll just say, the cartels, or they'll say El Chapo. something like that. I mean, I'm guilty of it too, honestly. But like all of this actually ties so much more into a lot of relatable topics in Chicago, in the United States in general, and just you know, this isn't directly related to Chicago, but obviously the Trump supporters were all about him for a while because of the wall. We wanted him to build the wall. Well, not we, but you know what I mean. Right. The Trump supporters, they wanted a wall. And that was supposedly going to fix everything, but people don't have a clue what's going on behind in the shadow war. So I just, at the end of the day, I've only been to Mexico a couple times, but to think that, like they're trying to hold on to the legitimacy of that state, the country. I mean, like most people here don't even know that. They're like, oh, no way, that wouldn't be happening. Well, that's right. Crazy that like it just.
They've mastered toppling governments all over the world, like,
oh, yeah.
And how could they not, if most of the migration is actually coming from Central America and South America, where they're creating a ton of instability because of the natural resources there, oil in Venezuela, rare minerals in Bolivia. They're burning down the Amazon for cow feed.
Yeah.
But if they're going to do that, then why not use the entirety of Mexico to buffer whatever mass migration is going to happen? Like Mexico already has a wall south of their border. It's not cool, but they do. So like, why build one all over the Rio Grande when they can just, finesse something? And that's not a concern for everyday people, but Mexicans here in Chicago that kind of, see different angles of all of this. Yeah, when I was talking to this organizer today, they're like, yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah. It's like, that's probably why Obrador is going to be at the inauguration on the 20th. I'm like, he's going to be there. That's weird. Like, yeah, that is weird. What do you think? I'm like, you're right. He's desperate to show Biden that there's no hard feelings, that he didn't want to use legitimacy during Trump's weird hold of power. And, and maybe Trump did pull off a coup, and how would he look,
Yeah.
If, Trump's holding all the cards and Trump pulls off a coup.
I wonder, I know this is a little bit off topic as well, but whatever. Trump, there's some people, obviously we know this, like the QAnon people, I'm sure that will make this video be completely off the charts for saying that, but like he's always playing 5D chess. I don't see that. I think he just knows he likes to, I don't know what he's up to. I don't know what dude's doing, but like after last night, like I'm done with this year.
Someone talked him into that $2,000, and I want to know who it was, and it's
me
awesome.
too.
It's good for him. Like whoever gave him that idea wasn't screwing him. Like, but
no.
he was sure to include that. Like, and I'll still be president next year. And that's the part where I'm like, well, right, that's right.
And it might be me.
I like him that much. He's nuts.
Like I got off the internet. I was off for like 4 or 5 hours. I came back and I see this video. I'm like, oh Lord, because he's been quiet lately. And when I say quiet, I mean like he hasn't been tweeting 400 times a day. It's been like 200. So that's quiet for Trump. And he's been like playing golf more. I don't know what he's doing. But he comes out of nowhere, and it made me laugh. I mean, it's obviously the world's terrible right now, but I was just like, what is going on? Like this dude, he's got like with the Christmas decorations in the background and like the soft golden lighting, and he's just there like talking about like how the government's spending money on like fish hatcheries, and dude then goes into like the farm. And so now I think all of his supporters are like, see, this was that plan, like trust the plan. So God help us all. I don't know, but
I hope that this, I mean, because Mitch McConnell is so much more gangster than everyone in that room. Like he doesn't care. He doesn't care. He does not care. All these people that are dying this year. I mean, this whole decade I put on his head more than most anyone domestically in the government, and he does not care. He takes credit for that. Like he's proud of it.
He is. This is what
like, those people deserve to die for being weak and sick and ungodly. And like, I don't care. It's like, dang, he sucks.
No, he's terrible. And so I'm curious to see how Trump, what else he's gonna come up with, because like
he can take over the Republican Party again. Like Ted Cruz wouldn't beat him up. That's the thing. Like Trump beat Ted Cruz in 2016 because he would do what Ted Cruz was afraid to do for interparty politics. Like, you know, and people, that's kind of why people were bashing on Bernie this year. And, you know, like I did want to, like, you know, I'm a 34, soon to be 35-year-old, you know, adult male. Like, I can admit when I'm wrong, you know, about something. And like, you know, like I went hard to like really defend Bernie this year because I felt like people were really, it was a little too quick for me, the vultures, to like start ripping up his carcass for like their own benefit.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, some mistakes were made, and one of them was that he played more inter-democratic politics, you know, when last time he ran a much more populist campaign of like, no, I will go where Democratic establishment's afraid to go. That, you know, that's true. You know, like Trump did that yesterday. You know, Ted Cruz is someone that is very pronounced in this Mexico Cisneros war, which is why I want to bring his name into this. You know, a lot of the Mexican journalists are pretty conservative because Mexico's a pretty conservative country. I mean, like, it's a pretty desperate place. If you have a little bit of something, you try to hold on to it.
Yeah.
You end up having a bit of a conservative disposition. So they're actually pretty soft and partial to the Republican Party as a whole.
Yeah.
But I haven't met someone that's not a little wary and suspicious of Ted Cruz and his ambitions and his plans with Mexico, because they're just like, that guy does not care about Mexicans. Like, you know, for some reason they would trust George W. Bush over Ted Cruz, you know, like, because they're just like, I don't know, Cuban guy, he's not going to care. He's going to mess us up.
Yeah.
And like Donald Trump giving Cisneros back to Mexico, I think was a weird play on his part to try to keep like, hey, Mexico, you know, doesn't recognize you, Biden. Like, I think it was a bit desperate that overwhelmingly helped Mexico. But now he's doing it again with the $2,000 stuff. And like, you know, I hate to say it, but like part of me is like, I hope he keeps going. I hope he keeps beating up Mitch McConnell and just destroys them so that there's a huge vacuum in the Republican Party, and he's just like, and I'm going to run again. And the weird deal he did with Biden so that they leave Hunter alone, like leaves Trump alone so that he can just keep doing that. I'm just like, go ahead. You know what, America?
Exactly.
That's what you want.
Yes, I've been waiting for you to get on board with me on that. Exactly. Just let it happen at this point. Like, it's no, it's not funny, but like, you have to just, what are we doing? I hope he does too. I mean, I've been saying this for a while. I hate to be like, I've been saying this for a while, but I have like there are some similarities between, not many, but there are some between Trump supporters, not like the full blown, like where they can't see any faults of Trump, because there are obviously many. And then there's Bernie supporters. It's the populist message that links them together. Now, I don't think that applies necessarily as much today as it did years ago when Bernie was much more populist. But all I'm saying is if Trump with offering or throwing out $2,000 can get people to like talk to each other that before wouldn't even speak to each other, I'm cool with that, because that's closer to realizing that people like Mitch McConnell do not care about you at all. Right.
I mean, Mitch McConnell is telling you that you dying is part of the plan. He's not lying to you. He's like, I want you to die. If you're too weak to go on, you should just die for me.
But, country, right.
And people are like, you know, like, so like to go for the topic of the day, you know, and I don't want to be, you know, a Debbie Downer or a wet blanket. People are excited about the forced to vote stuff, and I'm not going to stop it. I hope it works out perfectly.
Me too.
I really do. I hope it does.
So do I.
Yeah, I really do. You know, so if I hurt, you know, anyone's feelings for saying their plan wasn't perfect, I'm sorry, you know, for being mean about the plan.
Don't be mean now. No, it's fine.
I can be mean. No, I can be mean, and it's childish. But here's why I don't think it's a great plan. I hope it works out, but I don't think it's a plan to get Medicare for all. I think it's a plan to start a third party, which is fine. That's what we need. Okay, but let's not lie to people. Let's not use it to lie to people.
That's a good take on that.
Because it's not going to get us Medicare for all, but it's gonna definitely shore up the dividing lines on who's in and who's out.
Yeah.
And I, that is going to be what builds up to a third party in 2022. Will that get us Medicare for all? No. I think that might get us, a public option that doesn't completely suck. But would we even get that without a huge, huge fight? Probably not. They really want to cut the public option. So I'm not going to get in the way of mass movement momentum. But for me, these budgets right now, people getting direct relief right now while Trump's being crazy, while Biden's hiding. Well, he's always been hiding. But man, I kind of really wish that we could just start with Kamala in January.
Let's see what happens.
And then he's just all right, guys, I did it, I'm good. Lots of reasons why. And then we're just all right, we start fresh.
We start fresh, yeah.
Fresh start.
You're not a Debbie Downer because I kind of feel the same. So I probably lost all support for this channel. That's okay. No, I'm kidding. But no, I think it's important that people stay realistic. I'm happy about the unmasking, I would say, of a lot of the fake progressives because that's my thing. I can't stand that. I can't stand that stuff. I don't know. I feel long ago I was I don't like AOC because you always follow the money too. And I know Kyle Kalinski's part of the Justice Democrats and he supports this. Jimmy Dore movement. And I love Jimmy Dore. I love what Jimmy Dore is doing as far as having the conversation get out there. I'm amused and I like to be amused at politics because what else is there to do sometimes? That there's the Young Turks, that whole battle. But I don't know if all of this constant talking about and analyzing it to death about which one is right is very productive. Like you were saying, it's I want it to be a discussion that goes on. I think it's also kind of going to end up with a third party situation, which is great. That's all I want. So not saying I don't care about Medicare for all. Of course I do. But maybe I'm just a cynic. I just don't know. I want to be wrong. I hope you're wrong too. I hope we're both wrong. I hope that we get Medicare for all next year. And if so, I don't know.
I do think that AOC is more naive than a fake, but also not part of it. Remember Obama? A lot of people imposed their stuff on him. I kind of did. I'm maybe he's trying to fight the wars in a smart way to wind them down. No, he was there to just do what he needed to do to beat him.
Yeah.
But I think that AOC wanted that committee seat. I think that she felt like she could play to Pelosi's ego the way that Glenn Greenwald thinks he can play to Trump's ego. So it's not a new idea that this, the real progressives, the real left, the real imperialists, anti-imperialists, it's not a tactic that they don't use, but it's different, when it's Pelosi, because she's Speaker of the House. Now they have to make her the entirety focus. Now, has that worked before? Well, I think of Michael Madigan, and I think of Bruce Rauner, and the Illinois Policy Institute, and the entirety of the Republican Party of Illinois, basing all of their identity, all of their moves, all of their politics, everything that they do on him as Speaker and the policy that he doesn't move and getting rid of him, and how that's helping him beat the FBI a little bit right now. Maneuver. He got the Black Caucus to get out completely on board with him passing some agenda around for some considerations. I don't know why it would go different for Pelosi that broke the Justice Democrats' model of small dollar donation candidates. That was her plan long term when, brand new Congress started that model and Justice Democrats adopted it. She has successfully stopped. Like, I don't know what candidate's going to be able to run on small dollar donations alone and think that they're going to have the same fighting chance,
Yeah, I don't either. I don't know. Yeah. I've had a change of heart. I'm just like, at this point, I've been one that's like, well, somehow, some way, like a third party can get in and like they can beat them, but I'm just being super cynical. Like, let's just burn it all down. Kidding. But I mean, honestly, because no, I'm kidding. I don't know.
Here's my thing with that. Like, people did burn it all down in Washington, D.C. just like a few weekends ago, right? Like, they burned down the Black Lives Matter flags. They trashed a couple restaurants. They did all that Rochester stuff. And, the cops were nowhere to be seen because, they were probably in the crowd with them.
Most likely.
Right. And why were they there? Because of stealing the vote, right? They weren't there for Medicare for all. They weren't there for defunding the police. They weren't there for the material conditions being improved for themselves or everyone that they know. They were there because they voted, they participated in the system, and they felt like it was rigged against them. It was unfair, and they're stealing our vote. So when people are like, yeah, don't even vote, don't participate, electoral politics, the people that got Trump into office actively vote, actively participate, actively channel anger to get someone like Trump elected.
Yeah.
So like, I don't buy the, we have to disengage.
No.
We have to understand that it's completely limited. Like, a ton of Amazon workers going on strike at the exact same time is going to be much better than, bird dogging Michael Madigan for a month. But, if we can do both, we should do both. My thing is, I don't think AOC is a saint or perfect or any means, but I think that she's become a target because she's opened up her office much more to be that kind of candidate.
That's true.
And when she falls short, and she fell short here, to listening and maneuvering this with nuance. But I think it's made her a much bigger target. And my thing is that then you have the New Yorker, the intelligencer, running hit jobs on Jimmy Dore, who, I don't agree with everything that Jimmy says or how he says it or the way that he looks when he says it. But still, like, I get what he's doing, and it's not a terrible thing. And the intelligencer's hit job, like, really dismissing, the merits of his arguments and efforts, is also just pure gaslighting to win over not just AOC but her crowd.
Yeah.
It's really easy to win over a politician, to be completely honest. Like, that's it's just human nature. A bunch of super nice, rich people are just being super nice and giving you nice things, like, you get soft. But if they win over your followers, your base, if people in the Bronx are saying, screw that stoner California idiot, and, get the New Yorker to, like, stay in your good graces to beat up on Cuomo, then she stops being this national figure, which, maybe it's to her benefit. And that's fine. Like, I think, Rashida Tlaib voted no on this last bill. Like, only her and Tulsi Gabbard did that. So, there's plenty of people that are trying to do something that are principled. My thing is that, like, people call me partisan because I don't give leeway to Republican lawmakers like I would like AOC. But there isn't anyone to work with like that. Like, even Massey, who did the Snowden thing from Kentucky, who is the one guy that's closest to me that I'm kind of soft on. Like, he's a total weirdo on cannabis and like a total weirdo on like libertarian stuff. And like, libertarianism ultimately is my ideological opponent in these political fights. So like, the Republican Party is right to be destroyed and just taken over by the Libertarian Party. I'm not there to try to work with that dying ethos.
Yeah.
You know, there is to work with is Ted Cruz, who's just at the top, but you know, and duking it out and trying to find a place if Mitch McConnell would let him, but he can't. You know, he knows his place, and that's why Trump beat him, and that's why Trump is doing this to the party. So, like, I don't think that the whole focus on the squad and them not opposing Pelosi, you know, like, I wasn't there, so like, if this is what organizers want, that's the way to go. But I don't know if this necessarily gets rid of Pelosi. Like, if this was a plan to get Medicare for all, I don't know if it's really advancing us to Medicare for all. It's not the it's the issue to use this tactic for, but ultimately it's really a tactic to get rid of Pelosi, which is also good. But are we going to get rid of Pelosi? You know, I don't know. I if they do, you know, like, I'll be wearing a Jimmy Dore shirt, you know, all of 2021.
Yeah,
I will. You know, underneath, you know, like,
of course,
I will, you know, like, but if they get rid of Pelosi, but I don't think they will. But and then the other thing is, like, then the plan is really ultimately to show how many garbage people are there in the Democratic Party and primary them with a better party, a new party, or something, or just bird dog them into submission to support this. You know, not the worst way to kick off 2021 either, but sending organizers a bit into a disarray. Everyone's kind of catching up. So
yeah, that's true.
You know, I know, and you know, and other people explain the merits of the plan better than I do, and I think there is, you know, good stuff to it. I ultimately, though, I think that starting it and making it all about Medicare for all,
that's a good. That's an interesting point, honestly, because the way I've been looking at it, I've been seeing it more as like, I love that it's just making the discussion happen. Because you really can't put all your hope or like all your eggs in one basket as far as something like this, because it might not work out. And every time we do that, like whether it's for Bernie or AOC, whoever you like, if you put all your faith into like one or two people, it doesn't work out, you're going to be really disappointed. So I feel like it needs to be multifaceted. Like you said, multiple things can get done at once. So like, if we're trying to get Pelosi out of there, we should be organizing, like, who are the people that, you know, or like primarying these fake people once they're exposed. Like, that should be discussed as well. So I'm just happy the conversation's happening. And
like, Barbara Lee doesn't want to challenge Pelosi for her speakership. Like, we have to ask why, you know, like, and I mean, and I know why. It's because Pelosi has somehow said that she'd give them some considerations, but, you know, or somehow they feel like, you know, playing to her ego is the better move for the lawmakers. That's not what organizers on the ground are, you know, necessarily demanding, but like, that's what lawmakers like, you know, Barbara Lee, like Chuy Garcia, like, you know, people that have much more experience that, you know, than AOC or the squad, you know, people that weren't freshmen just a while ago. They're not shooting for Pelosi's gavel. The last people that did that came out of like the Lipinski conservative Catholic anti-abortion wing of the Democratic Party, and they didn't make it. You know, like, you know, I think that this kind of forces, you know, and this is the other thing, like, I do feel like the Working Families Party should make a move. Like, if something really great could come out of like this force to vote stuff, and, you know, the progressives actually try to withhold their vote from Pelosi unless she calls a vote for Medicare for all. And she might just agree to it and let it die, and then, like, you know, try to force a public option.
Yeah, she might do that.
She might just be a jerk like that, you know?
She might.
Yeah. But, you know, if the progressives end up, you know, doing that, and she's like, no, I won't even do that, and then, you know, somehow stays on, like, the Working Families Party really should be pushing to have ranked choice voting, you know, at the federal level.
Yeah.
And and then just go nuts primarying any anti-Medicare for all.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean,
and they have all the Democrats' networks. You know, that's how you actually primary a Democrat to unseat them, in my opinion. But, you know, create the justice.
I just want to, I don't know, I'll keep living in my little delusional world that I've created where I'm convinced that all the third parties, everybody's just starting to see how it's pretty much us against one party. They pretend that there's two parties, but nah, it's one. And we are not part of it, but they want you to think that we're part of it. So I can save that rant for another time. But I just, I'm glad the conversation's happening. I'm with you as far as I don't know if Medicare for all is going to, you know, happen as soon as we like it. It doesn't mean I don't think it should, but.
Well, I mean, the thing is, to get single payer, we need to be protesting like, you know, big pharma, like headquarters, you know, there's people that work in healthcare insurance that don't want Medicare for all, that invest in candidates that kill Medicare for all. We need to identify those clusters and make them uncomfortable, you know, like, single payer is a long fight. You know, one of the things though is that Canada has a much more robust, what you call it, government-facing healthcare system, and so does Mexico. You know, Mexico's in flux right now. Mexico passed, their Congress just passed a law that prohibits them from now working with the DEA and the U.S. military the same way that they were. This is actually kind of a big deal, because it's going to, if the U.S. acquiesces to this change in policy that Mexico is posturing on, and it seems like the Biden administration's, or Biden's not, you know, he's already going back on the immigration stuff. He was campaigning on day one, I'm going to undo these Trump's policies, and then he put Obama's old person that was terrible, and they're like, yeah, we're not going to be able to do anything on day one.
Yeah,
like that's unrealistic. So yeah, Mexico passing this with law enforcement could really change the dynamics of law enforcement in America. You know, Kamala Harris gave California cops everything they could possibly want with a nice PR makeover, and never really did more than slap them on the wrist. But she got those cameras. She got them wearing them cameras. So like, why can't we just say like, yeah, you can't work in Mexico unless you agree for the NSA to hold you liable for all the crap that they track you on, because they track everything. And we don't want that to be normal, but like state police could have a lot more oversight, and we can leave local stuff to municipalities that might not want, law enforcement the way that we have them these days, but if you keep the pensions and you keep a lot of the, other securities that are keeping law enforcement families intact, this opportunity with Mexico changing its engagement with U.S. law enforcement and military is big. And it was pretty easy. Mexico just said, we don't want more money from you. And America's like, what? It's like, yeah, all of this money comes with strings attached for you guys to do this kind of stuff here. We're just saying no to the money. And that means no more strings, and that's causing some haywire. Now, the other thing that Mexico's doing is they're trying to legalize cannabis. And that's something else that Canada is moving faster on than the US. If we were looking at this, with a US president with this whole, continent hemisphere in mind, like you got Pete Buttigieg and the Department of Transportation, they're looking at building a mass speed trail from the Pacific coast of Mexico and those resorts all the way up to Canada, through Texas, through the Midwest, through Chicago.
Yep, right through Chicago.
And then up into Canada, so clearly infrastructure wise, like people are thinking on this scope, but they aren't thinking of it in terms of public health, in terms of public safety, and we have, with the internet, with all of these tools, enough here in our hands to rationalize a perfectly good continent for all. The people in charge just don't want to. It's a huge, disgusting power play. And, if we're going to get single payer in America, Mexico doing these these unilateral moves, and then they're investing. One thing I'm not, again, I can't agree with everything Obrador is doing. He's kind of being pretty ruthless and gutting a lot of the welfare state, but he's also investing more in public health to basically undoing private insurance altogether. Going for it. The other thing that he's done that's also pretty smart has been to allow for past presidents to be prosecuted for corruption. So he's holding himself a little bit liable on this too, and it's making life difficult for ex-presidents like Felipe Calderon to really be a forthright critic of him, because he took away his lifelong pension. So ex-presidents get their lifelong pensions now. They don't get a lot of their lifelong perks. And he also said they're all liable for past corruptions. Now, he isn't trying any of them for that. Right. But now that he has Cisneros back in his pocket, and like the military is a little bit more, at ease with their legitimacy and all this, he knows that all the past presidents have had to have dealings with Cisneros and the way he did things,
Yeah.
His party could really make big changes in Mexico that could then translate into America. And just, to show that it's no accident, like him doubling the minimum wage was in large part inspired by the Fight for 15 fight here in America. Like, he saw Americans fighting for a higher minimum wage, and he's like, that's a great entry point, that would help, like that would be an easy layup, for a populist movement. So, we want single payer. I think that people are going about it in different ways, but I think that legislatively, we're looking at like oligarchs and their players holding most of the cards. And I think, I don't see the mass movement for Medicare for all working well with the people that were burning down Washington, D.C. 2 weeks ago. That's the thing. We want everybody, but we have to recognize that those guys were not burning down Washington, D.C. because Trump didn't give them single payer healthcare.
Very true. Very true. I do need, it's good to bring me back down to earth a little bit. I don't see those two coming together. I'd be crazy if they did, but I don't see it happening. That's all. I don't know. You're like a fact book about all the other stuff you just talked about. I'm excited it's a good thing. I'm excited to hear more about it this weekend. As far as Mexico. I'll move to Mexico at this point. Kidding, but the country's done. I don't know what else to say. I hope it's not, but that's not. But I guess we'll end it there for the night. We'll call it a night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Ali and Jose. Thank you guys for joining us today. Let's hope that it's not the end of the country. A lot of people care about staying here,
It would be good. We don't mean to be so doomy and gloomy, but just have a good happy holidays. Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays, everyone. Catch us again this weekend. Might be one of my final episodes when Ali takes over. But I need my break, and also don't know what the hell's going to happen with Chicago schools.
So good job.
Helping at that.
That too. All right.
All right, guys. Sorry. Happy holidays. Do what we can.
Bye, guys.